And that's when we started getting bombarded with really spammy cold calls from different marketing companies offering their services.
Sure.
And what we found is that most of them were seriously overpriced. Most of them had um, dubious ethical constraints, I could say. And so it became kind of my mission to kind of debunk all of like these marketing tactics that may have been valuable, 10 years ago, but really cause problems today.
This is the Art of Lawyering Podcast, a show all about making more money, being a badass attorney, and loving your life. The Art of Lawyering is all about becoming the best you possible. Whether you are a law firm owner, an associate attorney, or somewhere in between, this podcast is built to help you get the most out of life.
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Art of Lawyering podcast. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Small, and I'm excited to have you here with me today. I've got today a pretty cool guest. He's got a lot of interesting insights and thoughts and tips and tricks and all kinds of cool stuff to talk about related to your websites. And we'll get more into it in the interview, but this guy is not a lawyer. I've been talking to him for a little bit about some things that he does. And I thought he'd be a great person to have on. He also is going to talk a little bit about the Google algorithm update that's happening on April 21st, 2015, depending on when you're listening to this, and what you can do about it to make sure that your website continues to operate in a way that is good for you and your firm. A couple things. Well, real quick, I mistakenly said that this is episode 20 in the interview, and this is 21. So if you want to get to the show notes and you want to get to the things that we talk about in the interview, you need to go to theartoflawyering.com/021, not 020, which I believe I said in the interview. Okay, I messed up. I'm an idiot. The other thing I want to point out or tell you about right up front here is that our guest today, he creates websites for lawyers, and he does a pretty cool job, and he has a pretty cool service that's unique. And there's an offer at the end to try out his service. So I want to, I guess, sort of ask you to make sure you listen all the way through the end of this to hear what that offer is and hear how you can take advantage of it. I guess I'll tell you right now, to get the offer to sort of participate, you can go to theartoflawyering.com/amaze and check that out. Okay, so that's theartoflawyering.com/amaze. All right, and then the last thing is, and this is something I think I'm going to start doing moving forward. I think I did on the last episode too, is I want to start giving you guys more stuff and gals. I want to start giving you more tangible things that you can use to improve your firm. And what I've got today, so we talked a lot today about how to make your website function better and some mistakes that attorneys make with their websites. So what I've done is I put together a real quick PDF, okay? It's just the 5 mistakes you are making with your website and how you can fix them, all right? So I put together that PDF. If you want to get that, okay, just go to theartoflawyering.com/021. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a pop-up that comes up, okay? If you hate pop-ups, I apologize, but this is the easiest way that I could think of to sort of make this available to you. And it's going to be a real easy pop-up. It's just going to say, probably the podcast 21 free giveaway. You put your name, your email address in there, and you'll get this free PDF, okay? And I'm going to start handing these out pretty much every show. And here's the thing. If you are on my email list, I'm going to include these attachments with all of my emails, okay? So once you sign up for one, you're going to get all of them. So you don't have to keep going back and signing up again and again and again. This is sort of going to be the value upgrade that I give to the people that decide to get on my weekly newsletter. All right, so my weekly newsletter, if you don't know, it includes typically some information that I don't talk about on the podcast, that I don't talk about on my website, I'll also give the links to all of the posts that I've written for the week and all the blog posts or all the podcasts. And then now I'm also going to include these free PDFs. So it's a cool deal. You can go and join on the homepage. You can also go to theartoflawyering.com/newsletter and check that out. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can sort of participate and get this information. Because again, what I'm really trying to do here is help you succeed, right? I'm a law firm owner too, and I know how difficult it can be to get ahead, to make that jump, to be successful. And so, I'm trying to do my best to share everything that I've learned and everything that I'm doing with you so that you can get there too, right? Okay, what else do we have? I don't think we have how much else in terms of the way of announcements or like what's going on or anything. Just plugging away here in the middle of the AdWords course for the Law Firm Confidential members, I think they're enjoying it so far. I know that what I've been doing with AdWords lately, Google AdWords has been just killing it. We are having a great month, one of our best months ever, and it's in a large part because of the work that I'm doing with Google AdWords. So that's it. Hope you guys are doing great. We're getting into spring and summer, so I'm pumped to get out and play some golf. And if you guys are ever in Seattle and you want to play some golf, let me know. I'll play with you. And that's it. So let's get to the content. Enough chit chat. See you on the other side. Our guest today is not a lawyer, but he is married to one. He's the CEO and founder of Amaze Law, a business devoted to changing the way lawyers use the internet for business, specifically with website development and local search optimization. I originally met today's guest when he reached out to me to advertise on the podcast. But after talking to him, I quickly realized that he'd be a much better fit on the show to talk about what lawyers can do to maximize the effectiveness of their websites and a whole bunch of other stuff. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to welcome to the show, Bryan Marble. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you because I'm going to get to talk about stuff that I love to talk about and that obviously you love to talk about because you're in this space. But this is sort of website development, marketing on the internet, and all sorts of stuff like that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I could geek out on this stuff all day long, so I'll let you lead.
Okay, perfect. So I don't know a lot about you, but I sort of Google stalked you, and we're LinkedIn friends or whatever we're called on LinkedIn, and I see that you have a relatively extensive experience with sort of website development, computer coding, all kinds of stuff like that. So tell me about that. How'd you get interested in sort of this whole space at the very beginning?
Sure. So I've been doing websites for about 15 years now. But for the most part, I was working in the Defense Department doing black box software for planes and things like that. And
hold on. I want to know, how did you even get into it? Like when you were a kid? Were you a kid, or like, what was your first website? How did you even sort of like get to there?
Sure. So my first website was actually a garden center that I was working at in high school, and looking back on it now, it was pretty awful. But it was what my interest was growing up, and then I thought going into college that computer science meant I would get to build stuff for the web, and at the time it really wasn't that. It's really more in the last 10 years that computer science has really kind of shifted more towards the web.
Sure.
So as that shift happened, once I was out in the world, I realized I needed to be focusing on that rather than writing embedded software for planes. So took a job down at HubSpot, which is pretty much coined the phrase inbound marketing, and I was building their website engine for them, and that's kind of where the whole background of computer engineering and bringing that to SEO and basically trying to help attorneys build out websites that work for them, as opposed to just having a website that can do anything and everything, but it's hard to do any one thing.
Right. Okay. So you talk about what's inbound marketing. Tell me. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So inbound marketing is kind of the opposite of your traditional outbound approaches like display advertising, TV commercials, Inbound marketing is more creating content and creating a place for people to find you and a reason for people to find you. That's usually through blogging, podcasting, basically content generation and getting people to come find you and provide value in exchange for you provide so much value that when people come to you, you've already given them most of what they need, and now they're really just looking for the expertise that only you can provide.
Right. It's kind of the idea of getting people to raise their hand and ask for you, as opposed to the other way around. We're just hitting them with stuff over and over again. Okay. Yep. All right. So HubSpot, and then you went a couple places after that, right? You started a couple businesses, it looks like, or at least one or two. And then what? Let me see here. I'm just reading a little bit. What was Mill33?
So Mill33 was a email marketing platform, really geared towards companies that send tens of thousands of emails a month. We were essentially like the MailChimp for businesses that had kind of priced themselves out of MailChimp, where it became prohibitively expensive to send through them. We would handle that for them.
Okay, so are you talking about like big numbers of emails?
Yeah, we're typically talking, I mean, the low end was 10,000 a month, usually 100,000, 200,000, millions of emails a month.
Whoa. Okay. What kind of companies would be using those kinds of things? I'm just curious.
Sure. So one of the companies we worked with, mostly publishing companies, to be honest. Like, there's a site called Instructables. They basically send out cool project ideas that people have put together, and they have a mailing list of hundreds of thousands of people that they mail to multiple times a week. So businesses like that, where they have a huge audience of rabid followers.
Right. Okay. Cool. And then, so how did you get into law firm design? Like what sparked that?
Well, I married one. So she was, my wife is an employment attorney here in New Hampshire, and she was working for a big law firm here, and decided it wasn't really the lifestyle she was looking for. It wasn't the career path she was going for. She wanted more flexibility, more control, and obviously there's financial upside as well. So she set out on her own, and that's when we started getting bombarded with really spammy cold calls from different marketing companies offering their services.
Sure.
And what we found is that most of them were seriously overpriced. Most of them had dubious ethical constraints, I could say. And so it became kind of my mission to kind of debunk all of like these marketing tactics that may have been valuable, 10 years ago, but really cause problems today, and to offer attorneys a simple, sustainable way of marketing their own firms on their own.
Right. When did your wife leave when did she start her practice?
She started in 2013.
Okay.
So we had originally set up a website using WordPress, configured a theme for her. She liked it well enough. I did it for a couple of her other solo attorney colleagues around here, and it just became a little cumbersome. It's a little too powerful for what they were trying to do. And so what ended up happening is, instead of going in there every day and generating content and being able to go in and see how their website was doing, it became more of an exercise of being afraid to touch certain things. The process of creating blog posts was a little too difficult, and it ended up creating really stale looking websites. So that's when I set out to create a content management system specifically for attorneys.
What were some of the things that were happening that were sort of making them hesitant to go in? Do you recall anything specifically?
Sure. So, for example, a lot of the themes you'll get these days, they have their own management consoles. Every single one is different. So if you wanted to put something in the footer in one website, it would be completely different than some other website. Some of them had to be hard-coded. So, for example, one of our friends needed to change her business address. She was literally moving across the street, and she had no idea how to go about changing the address on her website, let alone creating a consistent stream of blog posts.
Right. Okay. And I can relate to that. I myself have a VA that works for me full time, that does all my website stuff. So when, because you can spend hours and hours on that kind of stuff, and A, not get anywhere, and B, like you said, sort of completely wreck your site and have things, show up places that you don't want them to show up, um,
Sure.
so okay, so I can totally relate to that. So you started to see these problems, and then you just thought, hey, you know what, I can sort of provide a solution. Is that how this whole Amaze Law idea, came about?
Yeah, pretty much. So again, back to my time at HubSpot, we were building a really successful CMS for small businesses, and I think since that time, it's really gone more up market a little bit. The businesses are much larger; their needs are much different. So, like small brick and mortar businesses, like solo attorneys, are kind of left in the dark to fend for themselves when it comes to their websites. And so I really wanted to strip out all of the complexity of those types of platforms and give them something that works well, is optimized for things like SEO, and is constantly being updated for any new trends that come along, without all the additional complexity of things like A/B testing or conversion rate optimization. Like we can do all that stuff in the background for you. We don't need, like, you don't need to be bothered with it essentially.
Sure. Okay. And what were, I'm just curious sort of about your thoughts on this sort of being in in the mix, but not in the mix. What were some of the challenges that your wife faced when she opened her firm? This is sort of off topic, but I can't help but ask because I'm curious to because I have a wife, but I'm curious about, but you have the marketing sort of chops. Um, what kind of challenges did she encounter when she was opening her firm, or is she continue to encounter, because they're still a relatively young firm?
Sure, definitely. Yeah, and growing any small business is extremely difficult. Like, um, I'm going through it with Amaze Law. She goes through it with her law firm.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a whole lot of risk and a whole lot of confidence on some days, and some days abject dread, depending on your day of the week. But it is very tough. And I think the idea of building up a client base is foreign to most attorneys coming out of big law firms, that haven't, associates coming out of big law firms. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't had to build their own client base before. They're essentially given work, you do the work, you move on to the next client. Whereas when you're your own law firm, you're building a brand, you're marketing, you have, like, the amount of time you actually spend doing legal work is limited. And I think that was a big shock. Um, I think just the ability to get in front of more people when they have the problems that they have. Employment law specifically, you're talking about businesses that likely already have attorneys that they've worked with for years. So how do you go about um, creating a client base around people that they may have an attorney that's kind of a general practice attorney that they work with, or business contracts, but they don't do employment law stuff. So how do you kind of insert yourself into those types of situations? And that's
Sure.
kind of been a challenge as well.
And the reason I'm asking is because I can tell you that you're right. Those are universal problems, and I'm just curious about what are some of the things that she's done to kind of overcome those challenges, or to work through those challenges.
Sure. I think, I mean, early on, I think there's so much about just hitting the pavement and doing word of mouth, hard networking. That's probably the quickest bang for your buck that I've found. Content marketing is certainly um, a powerful marketing technique, but it's also a long game. Like, you're not going to get the benefit on day one. It
Right.
takes months of consistent work. And I think one of the things that we're really starting to see now work well is the email marketing. So from the very beginning, we have emphasized creating a list in MailChimp. Anytime you go to a networking event, instead of taking someone's card, just pop open the MailChimp app, have them enter their contact information, and they're subscribed to your email list. So now, even though they may not have a need for what you're doing now, if you're sending out once a week or once every other week an update on different employment related problems, it keeps you top of mind, so that when they do run across those issues, you're there and you're the person they go to. So that's starting to bear fruit now too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love the email list, and I think that works for everyone. And it's also a great way for her to sort of demonstrate expertise over time because
Hmm.
she's working for businesses, so that her clients are different than like my clients, right? We do basically anything you can get in trouble to in a car, we do, right? Traffic tickets, DUIs, personal injury.
Right.
Um, but with those people, they need you at some point, and they probably don't have those relationships like your wife's potential clients do with attorneys already. So that is, those are the best ways. I agree with you. And I think the reason why I wanted to ask is because I think it's important. I talk about this stuff all the time, but to hear that it's working for someone, I think is helpful for listeners, to know that
Hmm.
these are the things that you have to do. And these are the ways that you get out there, right? And get clients. That you have to get out there and sort of do the things that make you uncomfortable. Because I'm sure your wife wasn't super excited about, you know, networking and sort of cold meeting people and stuff like that. I don't know her at all. I don't know what she's like, but I think for most people it's sort of a scary thing, especially if you haven't done it before, you know?
Definitely. And to be honest, like I've been doing digital marketing for the better part of the last decade, and specifically applying it to attorneys is a very different proposition, dealing with different ethical obligations to bar associations and things like that. And to be honest, like when you're starting out, it's hard. You're probably making mistakes all over the place, but unless you get out there and just keep trying different things and until you find the ones that work, um, it's not going to end well unless you're willing to put in that consistent effort over time. And you're going to be bad at the beginning, but the only way to become really good at something is to be bad at something to start. So I always just tell like my wife and my clients, do this, trust the process. Over time, this will bear fruit. And it does if you talk to people that have been doing it for a long time.
Right. Totally. What I always say is, look, this is nothing new. These are sort of like your fundamental business practices applied to the 21st century. And they are fundamental business practices because they work. If you see other people doing this stuff that you think are successful, they're doing it because it works.
Hmm.
So just sort of trust that it will work and just sort of go after it and give it a shot. You know, I do want to give a plug real quick for your website because I haven't mentioned it yet. It's amazelaw.com, right?
Yep.
All right, and let's talk a little bit about that real quick. So did you did you start out just creating? Well, is this WordPress based, sort of your platform, or is it built on sort of your own code, or what? How is the website built?
So yeah, sure. So we had originally started out. I was planning on going with WordPress and just making custom instances of WordPress for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when it came down to simplifying the interface to the point where it could become usable and enjoyable for attorneys, it just it was like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So we ended up creating our own platform for it. So it's all 100% custom, but that also means we get um, this is all 100% tailored towards attorneys. All the little things that become difficult in a WordPress environment are just taken care of in the background for you in Amaze Law. So for example, not many people know, but there's actually an attorney schema that search engines can read and read the data about your firm, your practice, where your offices are. We take care of all of that for you in the background, and it's just built in. There's a lot of attorney-specific items in there that adding to a WordPress site would take a lot of time, and you'd have to know about it to tell your developer to build it.
Okay. All right. And then, oh, one of the other things I was going to say and these links and all this stuff that we talked about are going to be in the show notes. artoflawyering.com/20, but it's 020. Okay, so theartoflawyering.com/020. You have made up one of these sites for your wife, right? And
Yep.
when we were talking earlier yesterday, you gave me the URL. I don't know if you are willing to share that so people can sort of see a work in progress, or not a work in progress, a site that's finished. Are you comfortable doing that so people can sort of see what it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nhemploymentlaw.com.
Okay, cool. And I went and checked it out, and I liked it. I'm gonna. Can I give one piece of feedback? So one of the things that I saw right away,
Sure.
there's no call to action at the top of the page. Right? There's
Yep, that's
no
very clear.
call here for. There's no for her, because her clients are businesses, right? For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
She could give away like a free ebook, 10 ways you are jacking up your employment law. You're opening yourself to liability, or the 10 biggest mistakes companies make when it comes to their employees or something, and get people to opt in and build their list some more that way. But anyway, that was one of the things that I noticed right at the top, because I'm big on call to action. That's what I always look for. So anyway, but like we talked about the other day, it's a killer site. It's clean, it's functional, it looks great, and what's cool about it is that it's very easy for attorneys to work inside of, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's all, the big goal is to make it so that you can get in, do the work you need to do, and get out and get back to doing, law-related work. And all the while doing those little things that allow you to build up that base of content marketing over time. So that's been the main focus. And regarding the call to action, I would definitely agree. We're working on a feature right now, actually, that will build in those types of giveaways into calls to action at the bottom of every blog post.
Sure. Yep.
And then site-wide as well. So that's definitely coming down the road.
Cool. So what is the experience like if somebody, I guess I'm trying to show how easy it is, how much easier it is than sort of building your own thing. But let's say somebody wants to try you out. So they sign up. What happens after that? Like how does the process work from sort of initial sign up to, the site is live and it's ready to rock and roll?
Sure. So from the second you sign up, it's pretty much concierge onboarding. So you'll be led through kind of some basic questions about your firm, talking about basically trying to lead through the process of writing good converting copy. And from that point forward, we on the back end will match the branding from your existing site or create new branding depending on what you'd like, and customize the look and feel of the website to be just what you need. And then from there, it's maintaining or being able to go in and update and create blog posts and create that content that's going to build that process for you. We try to make the process of, for example, writing a blog post as dead simple as it possibly can. So rather than on WordPress having to write a blog post, then go find an image for it, then go make sure you're doing copyright attribution correctly and make sure you're linking back to the person, we take care of that for you. You just do a quick image search within the app. It searches Creative Commons photos. We attribute it correctly. It's all done for you in 2 clicks. So we really try to make the idea of get in, get the content written, and get out and back to your life of being a lawyer. You don't want to add any additional friction when you're talking about marketing, because it's all about those small wins and basically building that over time.
Right. And what do you need to get started with you guys? You just need a URL? Do you guys host and do all that kind of stuff on the back end?
Yep. So we don't own your URL. We really don't believe in that. Any hosting company that tries to own a URL, it's usually a tactic to try to keep you from leaving if you make that decision later on. We believe that you should own your URL. You should own your DNS. Basically, we want to make your decision to work with us by choice. And if you ever needed to move on, we make that as simple as possible as well. So we're really trying to be kind of the white knights in a world where I think attorneys are getting exploited a little bit when it comes to digital marketing stuff. So we try to set things up to the benefit of our clients, not to us.
Right. I would agree 100%. What about content? If people end up deciding to do something else, can they sort of export their blog posts and things like that as well? Is that feature
Yep.
possible? Okay.
Yeah, we have import and export capability to WordPress. And then if you decide to go with something more custom or another platform, we can absolutely get that data to you. Your content is your content. We don't want to keep it. So we want to make sure that you get the benefits of all that hard work.
Right. Okay. All right. So, like I said, it sounds like a cool service. That's why I wanted to sort of have you come on and talk a little bit about it. But while I've got you here, I also want to sort of steal some of your expertise. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday that we think, or that is, I guess, that you have seen sort of in your experience working with attorneys, and that obviously that I've seen too, in my experience, is some sort of mistakes that attorneys in particular often make with their websites. And we came up with a couple of things, and I just wanted to sort of run through those with you and get your thoughts and feedback sort of on the some of the main mistakes that people are making with their websites. And I think a lot of these too are relatively easy to fix. It's sort of like you just need to know about them, right? So that you can be aware of what you're doing and really be sort of intentional with your actions, right? So tell me, when you look at a lot of lawyer websites, I'm sure, what's one of the sort of the main things that you see that you're like, oh my God, like this is not good. What's that biggest thing?
The number one thing is always just not updating the website frequently enough. The vast majority of websites, I'd say in the 90% range, they were created once and they haven't been updated since. And that goes from everything from updating images to updating the style to kind of maintain the fact that your website wasn't built 10 years prior. But I think the biggest thing and the most influential thing is just being able to write new content. So that's usually in the form of a blog. You should have a blog. It should be part of your marketing site. It shouldn't be somewhere else. It shouldn't be on like tumblr.com. It shouldn't be on Blogspot or any of the or Blogger. It should be on your own domain. You should own it, and that's because otherwise you're giving away all of that SEO credit that you're working diligently to build up. So it's not really rocket science. Write down 10 questions your clients ask you the most, or write down 10 common misconceptions that all of your clients tend to come to you with, and pick apart each one in their language. Just write down 300 or 400 words about why some assumption they have might be incorrect and what they can do differently.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to come up with content, but being able to update that frequently is huge.
Right. I had a debate with Kevin O'Keefe. Do you know who he is? He is he runs a blog called, shoot, I can't remember what the name of it is. Let me look it up real quick. And I'll tell you while I'm looking it up, I'll tell you what we were debating about. He is a big proponent of having your blog off of your website. I am not. I think your blog should be in your website, and I think it's a difference about his blog is called Real Lawyers Have Blogs, and I think he's the owner of Lex Blog or something. What I guess I'll ask you first. What are your thoughts about that, and then I'll tell you my thoughts about it.
I actually think I wrote a comment on that post a while back, or maybe it was on the Solo Says email list. But my definite comment on that is it should be on your own blog. You're spending your time. You're building up this SEO credit. It should be on your blog. Now, keep in mind that you're blogging to get more clients. If you're blogging about the law, or if you're blogging about different decisions and you're writing for other lawyers, sure, put that somewhere else. But if you're blogging for the benefit of your clients, it should be on your website, because that's what you're trying to attract your clients to you. If you're on a separate subdomain, meaning you're on Blogger or Tumblr or any of those platforms, you're just not getting the credit there, and you're essentially wasting a lot of that effort.
Right. I mean, even having like New Hampshire, employmentlawblog.com is not giving you the sort of the push that you want from Google, and it's also not sort of creating a uniform experience for your potential clients, right? And your response was exactly the same as I said. For him, I think in the blogs that they have, they're sort of like ego boosts is the way I see it. They want to get recognition from the legal community that they are smart and that they know what they're doing and that they have expertise. Whereas my sites, like you suggested, my sites are written for my potential clients, right? To demonstrate expertise to them, but also to answer their questions and sort of create a connection and do all of those things. And I think that is a huge difference. And the reason I want to have my blog in my site is because I want the people that find my site to find my blog easily, and that's the easiest way to do that. So I agree with your I guess analysis, and I think that it's important. Now, if you're, I guess on the other hand, if you're a primary referral source of yours is other attorneys, and the way that you can get those referrals is by demonstrating your expertise legally, then you may want to do that, right? Or you may just want to continue to have those posts inside your website anyway, right? I still think you want to have everything inside. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think if your objective is to get business, regardless of who that business is for, adding the additional step of having to maintain two different properties online, which would be if you had to maintain a blog website and your website, it's hard enough maintaining one, let alone two. It just doesn't make practical sense for most solos. If you're a partner in a giant law firm and you don't have anything better to do with your time than to blog about legal cases, then that's your prerogative. But if you're trying to get clients, and if every minute you spend marketing has to somehow show up in your bottom line, you need to be keeping that stuff on your site.
Right. Couldn't agree more. What do you think? What are you suggesting to the people that you're sort of talking to about frequency of content, of blog posts, for example?
To be honest, I harp less on the perfect number because more is usually better. But really, it's more about creating a long-term sustainable habit, because again, this stuff takes a while. So if you go out and write, a blog post a day for a month, and then you don't do anything because you're burnt out, it wasn't worth it. Now, if you instead wrote a blog post a week and you're consistent about it, and every single week you have a new blog post and a new blog post, and you're, linking to that in a newsletter, like those long-term commitments will pay off much better than trying to blurt it all out at once.
Right. So what's the minimum? What do you think is a minimum though? Once a month, once every couple of weeks? I mean, if you're looking at sort of like, what do I need to be doing at a minimum to sort of keep this thing moving forward? What would you say? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the person. I would pick the minimum that you think you could do and then cut it in half, because, or rather pick the amount that you think you can do and then cut it in half, because that's usually what you can safely commit to. Typically, if you're not able to update your website more than once a month, you can probably do some rearranging in your schedule. But I would say once every other week is probably the minimum of what you would want to do.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, let's be honest. You're just trying to be nice right now. If you can't carve out an hour a week to write a blog post, then you're busy doing too much other stuff, right?
Right.
I mean, come on, right? Because this is the kind of stuff that will get you business, and especially at the beginning, you don't have that much other stuff to do. What happens is people will get a case, or they'll get something, and they'll just work on it forever. It's a 10-minute problem, and it becomes a 10-hour solution because they don't have anything else to do. So they just keep sort of researching it, right? Or thinking about it. Instead, take an hour and write a blog post about what you're researching about, for example. and how that can affect your potential clients or something. So, okay, I always try to preach like once a week is what I try to do. And I tell people to put it on the calendar. It's going to be much, much harder at first. It's going to take you a lot longer at the beginning, but over time it gets much easier and it pays off, you know?
Yep.
It pays off in a
Yeah.
whole bunch of different ways.
And if you think about your 10-minute problem and 10-hour solution, imagine if that was applied to marketing. Um, the power that if somebody applied that same effort to marketing, it would pay out way more than that one case at the beginning. So if you can spare more time for marketing at the beginning, there's no better time to do it, especially if you're waiting for clients and you're kind of worried about what's coming down the pike. Write a blog post, write another
Right.
blog post. Just keep putting effort in.
Yeah. Yeah, because the idea, a lot of people believe like, hey, you know what? I'll just do really good work on this case and it's going to get me more business. But it's not, right? Because there are people out there like you and there are people out there like me and there are other attorneys that are doing these things that are going to beat you to those clients. And they may be doing just as good as work as you, but they're doing this extra stuff to get in front of people. And that's why your phone's not ringing, you know, to be sort
It's
of,
the ones that do. It's the ones that apply that consistent. And for some people, marketing is drudgery, and I get that. So, but it's the ones that can apply themselves to those like mundane tasks over and over and over again that are always end up being the most successful people down the road.
right. And that applies to every industry and every, you know, walk of, walk of life that you could imagine. Sorry. I mean, think about LeBron James. You know what? He's really good, but he practices harder than almost everybody, right? Um, Same with, anybody else you could think of, basically. It always looks easy at the end because they've done all the hard work, but there's a lot of time in between where they're just
Yep.
grinding, that you don't see a lot. So, okay, hey, if you're listening and you haven't gotten the point yet that you need to go do this stuff and that, yeah, maybe it sucks, but it's going to pay off, then go do it. Okay, so what else? What's another sort of common problem that you see or common mistake that you see attorneys making when it comes to their sort of website upkeep and use?
So what we kind of mentioned it when we were talking about the different types of blogs, but writing for attorneys and not people. I think a lot of attorneys coming out of law school, they feel like they have this great background and this great expertise in how to write in a very specific way. But it's so completely different from how you want to write to get clients that it often bleeds in, even if you're trying not to do it. I think your advantage as a solo is that you get to have a personality. You don't have to be the bigwig sitting in front of a mahogany desk. Like, you get to have a personality, and you should write like that. So I always advise clients to be writing as if they're their cousin or their grandmother or their parent was a client of theirs. Use that type of vernacular because your clients are people and they want to be treated like people and they want to work with real people. They don't want to work with gigantic law firms that have like the big giant buildings, and if they did, they're probably not the clients you should be going after anyways, because it's going to be a really uphill battle trying to convince them to work with you. But I think it just goes down to, in every single thing that you write, you have to keep in mind, who is my ideal client? How would I speak to them if they were in person? And really write for them instead of writing for attorneys.
Right, exactly. I always just say, look, imagine that because most of the time you're writing blog posts to sort of answer a question or, you're writing about some sort of topical thing. So I just say, imagine that you are not writing, but that there's somebody, a potential client, sitting across from your desk and you are explaining this to them, and just write that stuff down. Just write it down like that. Take all the legal gobbledygook out of it and just give them the meat, because I think another place that we get stuck is we want to, as attorneys, want to explain how everything happens and how we get to the solution. But at the end of the day, most people, they don't, I always say, look, when your toilet's clogged, and you call the plumber and he comes over, you don't ask him how he's going to unclog the toilet. You know, you just want him to unclog the toilet, right? It's same with people that have legal problems. You know, they don't care how you do it, right? They just want it done.
Yep.
And there's some explanation that you can give in between so that they can avoid problems and avoid traps and look and know what to look out for and things like that. But they don't want you know, to use another sort of bad analogy, I guess, they don't want to know how the sausage is made. You know, they just want the sausage. And that's something that we fall into, I think, a trap a lot of, because we want to feel important, and that's how we're taught to do everything in law school too. Explain everything step by step, analyze it, explain how you got there, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in the real world, people don't really care about that stuff, you know.
No,
So
they want to hear a solution in the context of their particular situation. They want the answer, not without the the back end work, and the person that can explain something clearly and how it applies to their specific situation is going to be much more valuable than the person that can explain the minutia of why that decision was reached.
right, and what I always say too is try to sort of surround your point in a story, right? Create some fact pattern or borrow sort of some facts from a case that you have, and create a story that will resonate with those people to make your point, as opposed to explaining like statute 4127 says XYZ. Just say, okay, Joe's out and he does blank blankety blank, and he got in trouble. Why did he get in trouble? Because you can't do this, you can't do that. They don't care about the specific rules. They just want to know what they can and can't do. Employment law is a perfect example, right? There's all kinds of stories that you can tell with employment law, and then you can just sort of give people the solutions in that way, right? Here's a funny example. So I used to work at the Kansas Department of Transportation, and the HR attorney was sitting. She was in the office right next door to me. So we would talk about the things that came across her desk frequently, and because we are a government organization, I don't know, maybe you can do this other places, but we couldn't necessarily, you couldn't just fire people. It wasn't exactly at will employment. It was, you had to have a reason, basically, right? But what would happen is these guys would just come in all the time and they would just say, yeah, I fired Joe today. Why? Why? Well, he, whatever. He did this. Okay. Have you been documenting this experience over time? No. Nope. I just told him to get out and leave, and you're like, well, you can't do that. Right. And then you could so that would be your story. And then you could spend the next part of the blog post explaining why that's not allowable in those sort of search situations, So,
yep.
Okay. That was a long story that didn't make a great point, but that's okay. Hopefully you attorneys out there, you got it, or got what I was saying. Okay. So we know that we need to sort of be updating frequently. We know that we need to write well for our audience. What else? What's another big sort of problem that you see from attorneys on their websites?
Not having a clear next step, and you mentioned that earlier with the call to action on the homepage. Once you've explained something in their language, a lot of times folks will feel like, oh, you gave away your expertise for free. You solved the problem that I have. That's the perfect time to start asking for a consult request, or asking them to join an email list, or ask them to comment on the post, if nothing else. Just some way to build that engagement with you so that you can take that relationship a little bit further. None of this stuff has to be fancy. You could just add a little paragraph in italics at the bottom of a blog post saying, for more questions about such and such a topic, give me a call and give the phone number. Sign up for my email list for more frequent updates about X. These are all small things that it doesn't require marketing software to do. Just throw it at the bottom and make sure it's clear and delineated that you are giving away your experience for free, but at the same time you can provide so much more in the attorney-client relationship as well, and ask to kind of continue that. Again, you mentioned the homepage. Having a clear call to action on the homepage. I've actually heard conflicting feedback as to whether you should have like the giant phone number. One thing I will say is that a lot of firms have the giant phone number in a giant image on your website instead of spelled out in the HTML of the website.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is that you can't click on it. Google can't read it. It's basically you're requiring somebody to be sitting there with a phone ready to type in your phone number, and that's probably less than ideal. And a lot of people don't even know that you can link your phone number, so that if somebody clicks on a phone number on your website, while they're on their mobile phone, it pops right into the dialer, and you can be speaking with them in a few seconds. So make sure you're adding those links as well. You can Google phone number hyperlink if you want to know how to do it. And then speaking of mobile, a lot of the stuff we've talked about is a lot of attorneys don't even have a mobile website.
Yeah, hold on. We can't get there yet. We can't get there yet. I was waiting for you to finish, so I could tell. I want to tell my. I want to tell my side of the story. I want to tell my. I want to give my 2 cents too. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get to the responsive stuff because it's an entirely separate topic. That's important that everybody's been asking me about on my Facebook page. What I wanted to say too is you can get a little creative too with your calls to action, especially within your blog posts. So if the situation allows, you can create sort of really easy short PDFs like checklists and things like that you can give to people if they just opt in basically to your list. So you could just say something at the end of your blog post. For example, even that example that I was giving, right? You want to fire somebody and it's not an at-will situation. I've created a checklist of these things that will help make sure that it's done correctly and done legally. And to get this checklist, all you have to do is in your name, your name and your email address below, and I'll send it to you. That's a great way to get people to opt in and do things like that, because people love checklists and they love sort of summaries and they love easy access to information. And on another note too, when it comes to giving stuff away, you cannot give enough away, okay? Especially when it comes to legal services, because although what you're saying sounds simple to you, because you have sort of been in the weeds doing it for a long time, even the most simple answers that you provide people are complicated in their eyes, because they don't know all the background. So all you do when you give that information away is sort of prime the pump for people to call you to help you solve the problem, right? It's just like and the other thing too is, most people and the people that you really want as your clients, they don't want to do it themselves. They want help and they want to make sure it's done correctly, and they'll pay for that, right? It's just like for example, it's just like the clogged toilet. There's a whole group of people out there that will try to solve the problem on their own, but that's not who the plumbers are marketing to, right? They're marketing to guys like me who are like, I'm not dealing with this problem. I'm going to call somebody and just have them come fix it, right? And so think about who your clients are and who you're marketing to, and just understand that you're not going to get every single person, but that you don't want every single person either. And the way that you create your content and craft your calls to action is going to sort of attract a certain sort of person. And you just want to make sure that you've taken the time to make sure that that person is the person that you want to help, preferably somebody that will pay you for your help. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on calls to action. I think they're critical. I guess the only other thing I would say too is you got a little technical as far as the phone numbers and stuff like that. I would say, look, if you are worried about that right now, put something up and just give it. Fix the linking problems and the HTML problems later, because if you don't tell people how to get in touch with you or what the next step is, then you're going to have a much lower response rate for your services. Once you hire Bryan and go to amazelaw.com and have them hook you up, they'll take care of all that stuff. But right now, today, put the call to action in there however you can, because it will make a difference. There's a reason you see it in everybody's websites because
Yep.
it works. Okay. All right. So any thoughts on that? By the way, I don't want to just leave you hanging. I want to give you a chance.
Sure. One other thing that I've seen recently is folks only having a phone number and not having an email address, or having an email address that doesn't necessarily go to a real person. So like the info at or
Right.
questions at. If you're a firm with multiple attorneys, that's kind of expected. But if you're a single attorney, put your actual personal firm email address in there. Because some people don't like talking on the phone, and you'll know whether your clients are fit that mold or not. But certainly, email is an easy channel for you to be accessible. So make sure your email address is on your website. And for some reason, I'm having a hard time believing I'm saying that in 2015.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, look, even if you have multiple attorneys, put one up there that has your name on it. For me, for example, you could do chris@emeraldcitylawgroup.com. That's the contact email. Just have that email forward to your administrative people. And then you have your own email that's like Christopher@emeraldcitylawgroup.com. That's like your work email, that you have on your letterhead and your correspondence with other attorneys and clients and stuff like that or whatever. There's no reason not to do that. That's a simple solution, and it does make a difference because people want to feel like they are getting in touch with a person, not with a company, like you already said. And that's one easy way to do it. You can just make up a name too. It could be Steve@emeraldcitylawgroup.com. They don't know. The point isn't who they're talking to directly. It's just that they're actually getting in touch with a person. So anywho, that was great. That was a great point. I agree with you 100%. All right, let's talk about mobile responsiveness. And I'm gonna preface this, right? There's this huge big, and I'm giving myself air quotes right now, because, well, there's this big Google algorithm update that's coming down in like 2 weeks. This is going to air, I think, on today's the 10th, 11, 12, on the 13th. So it's basically 2 weeks from the day that this airs. There'll be a big Google algorithm update, and why don't you sort of tell us what your understanding is of the update, and why it's important and what we should do about it.
Sure. So on the 21st, they're going to start including whether a website is mobile optimized as a ranking factor, meaning that if you were to search for your law firm on the 20th and your website wasn't mobile optimized, if you went and searched on the 21st, your ranking would drop. How far? We don't know yet.
What does mobile optimized mean, though? What does that mean?
Sure. So mobile optimized means that basically when you're looking at it on a phone, it looks like it should be on a phone. The text isn't really tiny. The places where you would want to click are sufficiently large that you could touch it with a finger. Basically, any website you go to and you look at the phone and you go, oh, that looks nice, that's probably a mobile website. If it looks like it's a squished down version of, if it looks like it would on a laptop except squished down into your phone, that is not mobile optimized. So that's really the general rule of thumb I'd go with that.
Right.
And you can usually accomplish that two different ways, either with a responsive website, which is one website that kind of adapts, or a mobile-only website, which basically redirects you to a mobile version of the website if you're coming from a phone. We can talk more about those later, but those are the two main options for making sure your website is mobile optimized.
Right. And here's a good example of I just looked up on my phone of a Google, or not a good, or a website that's optimized is your wife's, right? nhemploymentlaw.com. So go Google that on your phone, search for that on your phone, and then search for your own website on your phone. And if it doesn't have to look exactly like that, but if it's not as pretty as that on your phone, then there's a chance that your website is not mobile responsive or optimized for mobile in the right way. Right.
And you can test that yourself. I'll create a link to it. If you just go to amazelaw.com/Google test, that will forward over to Google's actual mobile optimized test. So you can enter your own URL, see if your site is mobile optimized in their eyes. Most of the time, you're probably okay. If your site's been built in the last couple of years, it's probably okay. But I would definitely check that out because it's going to be a big change starting on the 21st.
Right. And there are some, I mean, the easiest way, well, it depends on the easiest way to fix it, I guess, is to either sort of have someone like you that can help, but there are also WordPress themes, if you have WordPress, that are built to be mobile responsive, right? And
Yep.
and that's why if you have done anything like in the last year or two, then that functionality hopefully is already built in. Um, okay, so why is it important? Aside from the Google algorithm update, why is it important to um, have a website that is responsive to mobile devices?
Sure. It comes down to experience. So um, you want to provide the best possible experience to your customers. You don't want them to have to pinch and zoom all over your website. You don't want to have to click on a link and have it go to the wrong one because they accidentally tapped the link next to it. Um, you want to provide the information in a clear and concise way. All of this stuff leads to somebody being able to say, that person cares about the appearance of their website. And cares about my experience when I go to the website. So I think the way I look at it is, if I'm evaluating two different attorneys that have been referred to me, if one of the websites is mobile responsive and I can kind of browse around and look at their website, nothing looks off, that's great. But if I go to the other attorney's website and it's like it hasn't been updated in 10 years or it's really hard to navigate or it just really doesn't feel like it was made to be looked at on a mobile device, I'm probably not going to trust them as much as the other person, for better or for worse. And I think that's true when you're dealing with any consumer or business that is evaluating a product or a person. If the one that provides the better experience is going to be trusted more.
Right, and the easiest way to see what this looks like is to just maybe Google a listener right now. If you have your phone in front of you, just Google sort of your practice area in your region and click on a couple of sites, and you will quickly see the difference between those that are mobile responsive and those that aren't, because the ones that aren't will be extremely difficult to sort of navigate and read and everything. So take a look at that, right? And okay, so we had a couple more that we were going to get through, but we're getting close to the hour or so, and I think this is a good spot to sort of talk about a special offer that you have for listeners, right? Because there is an immediate need sort of to make sure that your website is fixed, right? And now is a great time for people to consider using a service that provides those needs, and you can do that, right? So tell us about what you've got going on.
Sure. So typically if you're hiring a web agency or somebody to do your website, it's going to take a couple of months to get set up and get through the process. Because we're specific to attorneys, we can make a few assumptions that others can't, and we can get sites out there pretty quickly. But we're offering Art of Lawyering listeners a month of free service. And if you sign up for annual billing, we'll actually give you that extra month every single year. So we have a 2-month discount for annual subscribers, and that means it becomes 3 months for you every year for life. So to take advantage of that, we're having folks head to artoflawyering.com/amaze, and that will direct you to our website where you can see a demo of what your site would look like on our system. Just give a sense for what you can do and how quickly you can get it done, and we can have sites out there in just a couple of weeks in time for the Google crackdown, if you will. But either way, I think making sure your website is mobile optimized is super important right now, and it's only going to become more important. So in all honesty, get out there and do it, whether it's with us or with somebody else. Make sure your website is mobile optimized.
Right. And you guys don't, require any contracts or anything, do you? I don't remember if I
No,
saw that. So people can try it out if they don't
no,
like it, right?
yeah, if they don't like it, we actually have a 60-day money back guarantee,
Okay.
and we don't lock you in. It's month to month. If you pay annually, we will refund up to your current service level for the year. If you're not happy with our service, I don't want your money. So that's the way we take it. So we try to be as attorney friendly as possible in that regard.
Right. All right, cool. So it's a good deal. We have eliminated pretty much all the barriers to entry to trying it out. So if you have been thinking about sort of redesigning your website or looking for alternatives to what you have now, I would encourage you to go give them a look. Again, you can go to theartoflawyering.com/amaze. That will get you to their page and sort of that special offer that Bryan just talked about. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. All right. So in closing, I always like to just sort of give people a chance to kind of give a last piece of advice. If there's one specific thing that you want everyone to really know and sort of internalize what that is, and then also contact information, how people can find you, and that's it. So what do you got?
Sure. So my one piece of advice is to get out there and do it. And continue to do it, because it really does pay off in the end if you're willing to put in that consistent work. So get out there and just do something small. It might not be the best, but over time you'll learn, and it will become really fruitful. If you ever want to get in touch with me, or if you have questions, anything web related, it's Bryan@amazelaw.com, and that's Bryan with a Y. And if you want to reach us on Twitter, it's @amazelaw. We happy to help with anything, any questions you have.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate your time, and you had some great stuff, and so I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Lawyering podcast. For more great action-packed advice and information, visit theartoflawyering.com.